Hey everybody, it's Jessie. I am driving home from the 2026 Advanced Conference in Chandler, and so I won't be looking at the camera because I'm driving, but I'm so just like full to the brim of inspiration and excitement, and I wanted to drop in with you all to share what I think is going to be like the first steps forward in this Center for Frequency Specific Studies group that is just being born. It really literally is just starting. And so the very first thing I want to do in that group is to create what we'll call a pathway to publication for FSM practitioners who are interested in but just kind of uncertain around how to get stepped through getting an interesting case published. And I believe it is really time right now to start flooding the literature with frequency specific microcurrent and PEMF cases because it's happening. We already know that microcurrent, it has like a validated mechanism that Juliana Mortensen presented at this conference. It was phenomenal. And so now it's like, okay, cool. We've got some sort of resources we can point to and say, well, this is what microcurrent does. And then the next question we would ask is, what do the frequencies do? And that's where the first stage is just get cases out there that demonstrate any of the effects you're getting in the clinic, any of the frequency effects. And then part two will be, I'll talk about in a second. But okay, phase one is just, I would like to create like something like an online course that literally holds your hand as an FSM practitioner through the process of translating what you already do in the clinic to a case report. So the foundation of that would be how to set up your clinic so that you're taking measurements, whatever those are. They might be lab values for you. They might be an outcome measure that you use. They might be range of motion measurements or pain measurements or like a PTSD scale or an anxiety depression scale. Knowing that as long as you're taking those data points at every visit, you will be able to translate this into a case. And it's not even as complicated as that. But how do we just establish our clinical practice so we're gathering the data? And then the next step is, okay, cool. How do I craft this into a case? Case reports have a short word count limit. Like you don't get a lot of space to convey the thing. So it's almost like an algorithm. You plug your background, your methods, your outcomes into basically an algorithm and craft it. And the hardest part for most people is getting it short enough, right? It's like you don't have to like over explain anything. It's just get the basics in there into the bones of the structure of a case report. And then you figure out, okay, where am I going to get this published? And we can help walk you through. These are the journals that have already published FSM cases, or these are journals that are highly likely to publish an FSM case. So, these might be places you try first. And then once you select your journal, the next step is to craft your case so that it fits the journal. They have like, it has to be in Times New Roman font and it has to be double spaced and you have to use AMA format for your citations. And it's just basic formatting stuff like that, which is tedious, but it's not hard. You just do it. And then you submit your case. And then you wait for the feedback, and then you modify your case based off of that feedback. And then either you get accepted when you resubmit it or you get rejected. And then you go, okay, what other journal might be interested in this? Then you do the process again. It's not hard. It just is new to most FSM practitioners. So if we have a setup in our little organization where if you're brand new to writing a case, you get to go through that step-by-step process in the online course maybe, and you get partnered with Jessie Tierney, who already published a case and has gone through the process and can advise you and answer your questions as you go through. And then after you've got your first case published, you can be like, I have the bandwidth to support one person in getting their first case published. And so if we do it this way, where each one teaches one, then all of a sudden, exponentially, we'll have all of these FSM cases getting published. There's no reason why this shouldn't be happening right now. So the thing that's missing, I think, is a structure, because we've been shown at multiple conferences, like, this is how you publish a case. But it's like, there's this sort of like, but I've never done it before, and I just need someone to hold my hand through the process. So I want to provide that structure, that hand-holding, that support, peer-to-peer support for people to start getting cases published. And I know if you just look back in your documentation, like, you're going to find some really amazing cases that are probably ready to go, and you just need to plug them into this process and have somebody help you get it done. And so that's what the first thing I want to establish in this organization is pathway to publication. There's no reason we shouldn't be doing that. So that's my first objective when I get home, is to create something that steps people through it, and then create a way for people to connect with each other practitioners who are willing to help, right? The other thing about pathway to publication, if we create a very clear, simple, single outcome measure that every person who does FSM does for their clients or patients, we could have this like across the board sort of cross-sectional study about what type of changes clinics that use FSM get for their populations. So the outcome measure I'm interested in is called the patient-specific functional score or scale, and you pick 5 things that are self-defined by you and your client. So it could be like bending over to tie my shoes, standing up off of the toilet, twisting around to grab my seatbelt. It could also be, though, things like not having anxiety when I visit my mother-in-law. I mean, it can be kind of anything, any functional thing. And so it could apply to, in my view, it could apply to any profession, which I love. And so this outcome measure, if everybody across FSM world does this outcome measure on all of their clients every single session, that's a tremendous amount of potential data that we could pull from at some point in the future. And if you do that for your cases, and every FSM case that gets published reports this PSFS percent change, that's a really fantastic baseline that we're establishing as we get these cases out there. So that's very exciting. If anybody has another outcome measure that they think is better than this one, please share it, because I think it's important for us to establish that and then just go with it and teach everybody to use it and sort of streamline our data collection in that way. The second thing that I want to do in this group is just to create a collaborative community of open, transparent, supportive, inspired communication between those of us who are interested in doing this work. Not everybody wants to publish their cases, but I think more people will want to if we have a structure in a community that supports the process. I also think that, I have a ton of research ideas, and if I have a ton of research ideas, I imagine you guys do too, right? And I think if we start to talk about these openly, we're gonna be able to do so much more than if I'm just like over here in my clinic, like going, gosh, I wish I could have access to a capnometer so that I can look at carbon dioxide saturation when I run the hypoxia protocol. Like, what if somebody has a capnometer that they're not using or would be able to use? Or there's so many possibilities when we all get together in community. So I'm very excited to hear what you guys have to say and offer, and thoughts and ideas, and but don't forget about this in this community. So I plan to host a monthly, I hope I can do it monthly, just drop in where anybody interested in research hops on a Zoom call and gets together, and we get to talk, and we get to go, these are my interests and those are that person's interests, and it's like, oh, you love researching hypermobility? I do too. Let's do this together. Let's collaborate on a project. And also, getting people connected potentially with universities that can do an institutional review board review of an idea that you have if you want to do a more rigorous than case study, which first step is just get a couple cases out there and just get your toes in the water of like what this process is like. And then, the next step would be creating a study, which might be a randomized controlled trial, or it might be a collection of cases. So for example, for me, what that looks like is once I get this blood clot case published and out there in the world, my next step would be, okay, can I collaborate with a vein clinic and offer this additional modality while they're doing real-time Doppler and see what happens with blood clots in real time? Like that would be the next step. And I would collect those cases and then publish a group of 6 or 10 of those cases. And then the next step would be, okay, let's do a randomized control trial because this is really something. That's the beauty of this community. It's just interdisciplinary. We've got MDs, NDs, PTs, OTs, massage therapists, acupuncturists, all of it, right? Everybody. And I'm sorry if I didn't say your profession, but that's just who popped in just in this moment. We have access to different perspectives and ideas around, if you ordered this type of a lab, or if you did this outcome measure. So that is very exciting to me. The third thing I think would be phenomenal to establish in this Center for Frequency Specific Studies is if we could establish the basic science behind frequency-specific modalities. So we already know that there is established data behind microcurrent. There's also established data behind PEMF. So what we would add to that conversation is, how do the frequencies work? How can we validate specific frequency effects on specific tissues? Getting cases out there is amazing. And an additional way we could contribute to that conversation is measuring what happens in the body when we run specific frequencies. So we could do a study where we do 4010 and 4396 and 40, tissue of some sort, 77. And we could measure with various different outputs. So we could use a dark field microscope. We could use lab values, blood values. We could use a pain measure. We could use a function measure. We could look in real time with an ultrasound what's happening under the tissues when we run various frequencies and establish what each of these frequencies looks like when we're identifying it or observing it with these various measures. And we may find that like dark field microscopy is a really great way of seeing changes, or maybe not. That one's not as helpful. But establishing the basic science behind frequencies specific, microcurrent or PEMF or whatever frequencies, because it could even be sound, could be light, but what are the physiologic changes in the body when we use these specific frequencies run through these various modalities? So that's another question I think it's time to answer. And then a fourth question I think is really important to start exploring is like, what's a way that we can, as a third party, as an independent party, validate the outputs of these various microcurrent and PEMF and maybe light sound devices that we're using for frequency specific work. We could use an oscilloscope. There's an instrument that I learned about recently that's really expensive, but it's super sensitive to measure outputs. So I think it's really important that we provide a third-party independent, valid way of measuring the outputs of our devices so that we can feel really confident that, yeah, these are similar, or this device might have a little bit more of an accurate output than that device. And I think it's important that the companies that are creating the devices aren't the ones to do that study. It needs to be an independent third party, right? Because for obvious reasons, right? There's financial, whatever, all of it. So, and it's just how rigorous science is done. So we would want to also create some way of validating and comparing outputs with devices. There's a study I just looked at for like ways of measuring heart rate variability, and it compared all of these. I think it was like 7 different, don't quote me on this, but like a handful of different HRV measures, and it showed this way of measuring HRV is not very accurate compared to that way. And then, so that's something I think we could look at that study and just go, cool, how do we build a study comparing microcurrent devices and PEMF devices in the same way, comparing apples to apples. So I think that's also another really cool research project we could start working on. We could start building toward just being in a group like this. I have a wonderful supportive research advisor who helped me do my randomized controlled trial for yoga breathing in PT school, and then helped me with the blood clot case, and is just super supportive. And we're already talking about collaborating on studying different hypermobility phenomena in response to microcurrent through this university that he's a part of. And so there are probably many opportunities for us to connect with universities, for those of us wanting to go beyond simple case reports and wanting to like do a bigger type of a project, or start with a case report and then build from there. We can make connections with universities, I have no doubt, that can provide the institutional review board for whatever project we're working on. Or there's foundations and organizations that we could connect ourselves with to do a little more rigorous research after we've gotten the cases established. But start with your cases, because that's a really wonderful way to build a foundation toward more rigorous research studies. So I am so inspired and so excited, because it just feels very clear to me that this is where we're headed. We are in a beautiful position to start really being a part of contributing to the narrative around frequency medicine that everyone is hungry for right now. It's such an exciting time. Like, this is a really big time to be a part of frequency medicine. And we all, like, especially in this frequency specific community, have such a clinical background expertise in what this does. And so it's us that are in this amazing position to contribute to the narrative around what we're doing, and to contribute to the literature so that this gets into the world. It is so time, like now is the time. And so I'm thrilled and excited and jazzed to be starting or establishing or being a part of this initial community that's interested in research with you all. So thank you. I would love to hear from all of you, so please contribute your voice, contribute your perspective. What are your research questions? What are your areas of interest that you want to dive into? And I'm certain that there's going to be amazing connections, interdisciplinary connections across the board, where we can start collaborating with each other and supporting each other to get this amazing work done and out in the world. So please join us for the monthly meetings. I'll post it'll be like an event you can RSVP to inside of the Group Center for Frequency Specific Studies, and let's take off with this and go with this and really see where we take it. And I'm also, these are my ideas. I'm just kind of sharing all of what I'm thinking with you. I'm not attached to anything. Like, if this needs to grow in a different direction, I just want to start the conversation with you guys and start the work and start just doing something with this. So please share your perspective and your voice. There's not many of us frequency practitioners yet that have the level of experience that you have, right? You have a lot of experience because you've been doing this. So let's share our thoughts and our ideas and our inspirations and just get going. So thanks for listening to my long-winded download debrief post FSM conference, and look forward to chatting with you guys and hearing from you and getting inspired by you and collaborating with you all here in the future. Take care.